I'm 74 years old, and I destroyed 1,400 hours of scientific documentation that would have vindicated my entire ruined career. Video evidence of a Bigfoot's cognitive and emotional development from infancy through adolescence. Proof that would revolutionize our understanding of intelligence, consciousness, and what it means to be human. My name is Dr. Elias Thorne. I was a wildlife biology professor at UC Berkeley until 1981, when my insistence that Bigfoot deserved serious scientific study destroyed my academic reputation. I was divorced, estranged from my children, publicly ridiculed by colleagues who'd once respected my fieldwork, exiled from academia for pursuing what they called cryptozoological nonsense. I retreated to 40 acres in the Siskiyou Mountains of southern Oregon, built a log cabin with my own hands, lived without electricity or phone service, survived on consulting work for timber companies, the only people who'd still hire me. My isolation was punishment and sanctuary both. Then, in October 1987, during a solo elk survey, I found her, an adult female Bigfoot dead in a ravine, shot by deer hunters who probably thought they'd killed a bear until they got close enough to see what they'd actually done, panicked and fled, leaving the body. And nearby, wedged between rocks, hypothermic and starving, an infant, maybe 5 to 7 months old, crying with sounds that were unmistakably distress, unmistakably grief, unmistakably the universal language of a child who'd lost its mother. I had seconds to decide. Report the discovery. Turn the infant over to government wildlife agencies, watch it become a research specimen, lose any chance to document its development on my own terms, or take her home, raise her in secret, document everything, become the scientist and the father I'd failed to be in my previous life. I wrapped her in my flannel jacket and carried her 8 miles back to my truck, made a decision that would define the next 9 years of my life and destroy everything I documented at the end. I named her Willow, for the reddish-brown hair that covered her small body, like willow bark in autumn light. I quit drinking the day I found her. Had to be sober, had to be present, had to be the parent this impossible child needed. Over 9 years, I recorded more than 1,400 hours of VHS footage. Willow learning to walk, learning to communicate, showing cognitive abilities that rivaled chimpanzees, and emotional complexity that mirrored human children, developing a bond with me that transcended species, logic, and everything I'd been trained to believe about biological boundaries. The tapes document the most significant scientific discovery of the 20th century, and the most profound relationship of my entire life. I have some of that footage. Not all, I destroyed most of it, but enough to show you what I witnessed, what I learned, what I lost when I finally chose protection over proof. This is the story of how a disgraced scientist found redemption in raising a creature that shouldn't exist, and how that redemption required destroying the very evidence that would have restored everything I'd lost. Before we begin, comment below and let me know where you're watching this from today. I need to know this story reaches people who understand that some beings are more valuable protected than proven. Now let me tell you about October 1987 and the day everything changed. The end came in 1981, a faculty meeting at UC Berkeley, where I presented my proposal for a serious funded cryptozoological research initiative focusing on reported Bigfoot sightings in the Pacific Northwest. I'd spent 3 years compiling data, footprint casts with dermal ridges, hair samples that didn't match any known primate species, eyewitness testimony from credible sources, forest rangers, biologists, hunters with decades of wilderness experience, statistical analysis showing clustering patterns in sightings that suggested territorial behavior rather than random hoaxes. My presentation was thorough, professional, scientifically rigorous. The faculty laughed, not polite dismissal, actual laughter. Dr. Patricia Morrison, my department chair, looked at me with something close to pity. "Elias, this is embarrassing. You're one of our best field researchers, and you're throwing your career away chasing fairy tales." "These aren't fairy tales," I said. "The evidence suggests an unidentified primate species. The evidence suggests people see what they want to see. You're better than this. Or you were." I pushed harder, demanded they at least review my data before dismissing it, accused them of scientific close-mindedness, of letting cultural bias prevent legitimate inquiry. That was my mistake, challenging their scientific integrity, making it personal. The university didn't fire me officially. They simply didn't renew my contract. My funding disappeared. My graduate students were reassigned. My fieldwork was no longer aligned with departmental priorities. By summer, I was unemployed. Unemployable in academic biology, the man who'd thrown away tenure to chase Bigfoot. My wife Linda filed for divorce in August. We'd been married 16 years, had 2 children, Michael, 14, and Sarah, 12. "I can't do this anymore, Elias," she said. "You chose this obsession over your family, over your career, over everything that actually matters. The kids are embarrassed. Your son won't tell his friends what his father does because you don't do anything except rant about creatures that don't exist." "They do exist," I said. "The evidence?" "There is no evidence, just your need to be special, to discover something no one else has found, to matter in ways you apparently don't matter as a husband or father." She was right about that last part. I'd been absent even when physically present, always planning the next research trip, always analyzing data instead of helping with homework, always more excited about footprint casts than about Michael's baseball games or Sarah's piano recitals. The divorce was finalized in November. Linda got custody. I got supervised visitation rights and a settlement that gave me enough money to disappear, which is exactly what I did. I bought 40 acres in southern Oregon, remote, 40 miles from Cave Junction, the nearest town. No neighbors for miles, just forest and mountains and the kind of isolation where a man could either heal or completely lose himself. I chose the latter, built a cabin. No electricity, no phone, just me, and the wilderness and the bottle of whiskey I'd worked through most nights while writing letters to my children that I'd never send because I didn't know what to say that wouldn't sound like justification or excuse. Michael and Sarah stayed with Linda in San Francisco. They'd visit sometimes during the first year. Awkward weekends where I didn't know how to talk to my own children without the conversation becoming about what I'd lost, what I'd chosen, what I'd destroyed pursuing something I still believed in but could no longer defend. By 1983, the visits stopped. Michael stopped returning my calls. Sarah sent polite birthday cards with nothing personal written inside. I'd become the embarrassment Linda said I was, the father who'd abandoned them for a fantasy. By 1987, I'd been in exile for 6 years, survived on consulting work for timber companies, wildlife surveys, environmental impact assessments, work that paid enough to keep me fed but didn't require interacting with academics who'd once been colleagues. I drank too much, worked alone too much, spent too much time in the forest tracking signs that probably meant nothing, pursuing evidence that would never convince anyone because I'd already been labeled a crank. I was 44 years old, had lost my career, my marriage, my children, my reputation, had nothing left except stubbornness and isolation, and the bitter knowledge that I'd been right about something but would never be able to prove it because proof required resources and credibility I no longer possessed. October 1987. I was conducting an elk population survey for a timber company. Solo work. 3 weeks in the backcountry. The kind of assignment that kept me away from people and gave me time to pretend I was still doing meaningful research. I was following a game trail when I heard it. Gunshots. 3 rounds. Then voices. Hunters arguing, panicking, saying something about, "What the fuck was that?" and "We need to leave right now." They crashed through the brush, heading away from wherever they'd been. I waited 20 minutes, then followed the blood trail. Found the adult female in a ravine. She'd fallen or been pushed 30 feet down an embankment. Multiple gunshot wounds. Dead for maybe an hour, judging by body temperature. A Bigfoot. Unmistakable. 7.5 feet tall. Covered in reddish-brown hair. Face that was simultaneously ape-like and eerily human. Hands that showed clear evidence of tool use. Calluses, worn fingerprints, scars from years of manipulating objects. I'd spent 6 years in exile for insisting these beings existed, and here was proof, dead proof, killed by hunters who'd probably thought they were shooting at a bear until they saw the body up close and realized they'd killed something that would bring questions they couldn't answer. I should have reported it, called wildlife authorities, documented the discovery, finally had my vindication, but then I heard crying, weak vocalizations, coming from rocks near the female's body. I found the infant wedged between boulders, so small, maybe 15 pounds, covered in the same reddish-brown hair as the dead female, eyes that showed awareness, fear, desperate need. The infant was dying, hypothermic, dehydrated, starving, would be dead within hours if I left it there. And if I reported the discovery, the infant would become government property, would be taken to a research facility, would spend its life in captivity, studied and measured and treated as a specimen rather than a being. I had seconds to decide what kind of scientist I was going to be, what kind of man. I chose the kind who carries an orphaned infant 8 miles through the wilderness wrapped in his flannel jacket, talking to her the whole way, promising her she'd be safe, promising her I wouldn't let her die the way her mother had died, promising things I had no idea if I could deliver. I chose to become a father again, to a being that shouldn't exist, in a way that would change everything I thought I knew about love, family, and what it means to protect something more valuable than proof. The hike back to my truck was the longest 8 miles of my life. The infant was so small, so fragile. I could feel her heartbeat through the flannel jacket, could feel her shivering despite being pressed against my chest for warmth. She made sounds, not quite crying, more like distress vocalizations, sounds that communicated need without language, sounds that any mammal would recognize as a baby asking for help. I talked to her the whole way. "You're okay. I've got you. You're safe now. I'm not going to let anything happen to you." Didn't know if she could understand words, didn't matter. The tone was what mattered. The rhythm, the promise that she wasn't alone anymore. By the time I reached my truck, it was nearly dark. The infant had stopped vocalizing, had either calmed down or was too weak to continue. I couldn't tell which. I drove 40 miles on logging roads to reach my cabin, carried her inside, laid her on my bed wrapped in blankets. She looked up at me with eyes that were unmistakably aware, frightened but aware, watching me, trying to understand if I was threat or safety. "You're safe," I said again. "I promise you're safe." I had no idea what to feed a Bigfoot infant. No reference material. No veterinary knowledge specific to unknown primate species. I tried warm milk mixed with honey. She rejected it. Tried mashed banana. She pushed it away weakly. Tried everything I could think of while she got weaker, more lethargic, closer to shutting down completely. Finally, desperately, I tried something I remembered from wildlife rehabilitation. Electrolyte solution mixed with a small amount of protein powder. Fed to her drop by drop using a clean rag she could suck on. She took it, slowly, weakly, but she took it. Over the next 6 hours, I fed her every 20 minutes, kept her warm, monitored her breathing, watched for signs of improvement or decline. Around 3 a.m., she opened her eyes fully, looked at me with something that might have been recognition or might have been resignation, made a soft sound, not distress this time, something else. Acknowledgement, maybe. I touched her hand, her tiny fingers wrapped around mine instinctively, the same reflex human infants have, the universal language of helplessness reaching for security. "I'm here," I whispered. "I'm not leaving. You're not alone." She held my finger for 20 minutes before falling asleep. First real sleep since I'd found her. First moment where her body relaxed enough to trust that survival was possible. Over the next 3 days, I learned everything I could through observation and desperate improvisation. The infant. I started calling her Willow on day 2 because she needed a name, needed to be more than it or the creature, was stronger than she'd initially appeared. She had reddish-brown hair covering most of her body, except her face, palms, and the soles of her feet. Her face was a blend of ape and human features, prominent brow ridge, but surprisingly expressive eyes, nose that was flatter than human but more refined than great ape, mouth that could form expressions I recognized as emotion rather than just instinct. Her hands were remarkable, fully opposable thumbs, dexterous fingers. She could grip objects with precision that suggested fine motor control would develop naturally. She vocalized frequently, different sounds for different needs. I started categorizing them in my notebook. Distress cry, hunger cry, comfort sound, curiosity sound. The beginnings of language without words. Communication through tone and rhythm and intent. By day 4, she could hold her head up steadily. By day 6, she was showing interest in her surroundings rather than just surviving. By day 10, she made eye contact deliberately and smiled. Actual facial expression of contentment. When I fed her or talked to her, she was developing faster than human infants, but showing complexity that suggested she wasn't just a smart animal, she was a person. Small and helpless and completely dependent on me, but a person nonetheless. On day 12, I had to make a decision that had been haunting me since I found her. Was I keeping Willow to study her or to protect her? If this was scientific study, I needed to maintain objectivity, document without attachment, treat her as a research subject whose development would provide invaluable data about an unknown species. But I'd already failed that, was already attached, already calling her by name, already feeling something that had nothing to do with science and everything to do with the fact that she needed me, and I needed to be needed in ways I'd failed with my own children. I made the decision consciously. I was keeping her to protect her, to raise her, to be her father because she didn't have one and I'd lost the children I should have been a father to. Science could be part of it. I'd document everything, maintain records, do this properly. But the purpose wasn't vindication or proof. The purpose was keeping her safe, giving her a childhood, making sure she grew up knowing she was loved rather than studied. That night, I wrote the first entry in what would become years of journals. Day 12. I'm not her researcher. I'm her father. This changes everything. This means I can never release what I document without her consent. This means her well-being matters more than my career ever did. This means I finally have the chance to be the parent I failed to be before. God help me, I'm going to try to do this right. By week 3, Willow had stabilized completely, was gaining weight, growing stronger, beginning to move with coordination rather than just reflexive grasping. She'd developed a routine: wake up crying for food, eat while I held her, fall asleep against my chest while I talked to her, or read aloud from whatever book I was working through. The physical contact was constant. She needed it the same way human infants needed it, for security, for warmth, for the reassurance that she wasn't alone. I'd hold her for hours. She'd wrap her fingers around mine, or grab my shirt, or press her face against my shoulder. The simple mammalian need for touch that transcends species. One evening in early November, about a month after I'd found her, she was lying on my chest while I sat in my reading chair. I was reading Darwin's Descent of Man. Seemed appropriate given the circumstances. Willow reached up and touched my face, ran her small fingers across my beard, exploring texture and shape, looked at me with those remarkable eyes, and made a sound I hadn't heard before. Not distress, not hunger, something else. Something that sounded almost like contentment, with curiosity. Like she was trying to understand what I was, the same way I was trying to understand what she was. "I'm your dad," I said softly. "I don't know what that means for you, but that's what I am. I'm the one who's going to make sure you're safe, make sure you're loved, make sure you get to grow up without being afraid." She made the sound again, then settled against my chest and fell asleep. I sat there for 3 hours, afraid to move and wake her, just holding this impossible child and thinking about what I'd committed to, what it would mean to raise her, what it would cost if anyone discovered what I was doing, and understanding completely that I'd do it anyway, because she needed me, and I needed her in ways I was only beginning to recognize. If you're watching this, and you've ever had to choose between what's right for your career and what's right for someone who depends on you, stay with this story. My former colleague said nobody would care about a disgraced scientist raising a Bigfoot in isolation. But if you're still here, you're proving them wrong. Hit subscribe. Help me show that stories about unconventional families, about love that transcends every boundary we think matters, these stories deserve to be told. Now, back to Oregon, winter 1987. By December, I'd transformed my entire life around Willow's needs. Quit drinking completely. Couldn't risk being impaired when she needed me. Established feeding schedules. Baby-proofed the cabin as much as possible. Started keeping detailed developmental notes. But I had a problem. I needed to document this properly. Needed video evidence of what I was witnessing. Written notes and photographs weren't enough to capture the complexity of her development. In late December, I drove to Cave Junction and bought a VHS camcorder. Top of the line for 1987, cost almost 3 months of consulting income. Also bought a gas generator, so I could charge batteries and power the TV to review footage. The first time I turned the camera on Willow, she was 4 months old, or what I estimated was 4 months since I had no way to know her actual birth date. She'd started crawling, could sit up independently, was showing interest in objects beyond just food and comfort. I set up the camera on a tripod and started narrating. December 28, 1987. Subject is approximately 4 months old, demonstrating motor control equivalent to 6-month-old human infant. Vocalization patterns continue to increase in complexity. I stopped, listened to myself. The clinical detachment, the scientific distance. Looked at Willow. She was watching me with those curious eyes, reaching toward the camera because it was new and interesting. I started again. December 28, 1987. This is Willow. She's 4 months old. She's beautiful and curious and getting stronger every day. And I'm her father. This is our story. The camera changed everything. Not because it captured evidence, though it did, but because it forced me to witness myself, to see how I interacted with Willow, to recognize what was happening between us. The early tapes show me being careful, uncertain, treating her like she might break, speaking to her in the overly gentle tones people use with things they're afraid of damaging. But over weeks and months, the footage shows transformation, me becoming more confident, more natural, more genuinely paternal. By February 1988, the tapes show me sitting on the floor with Willow, playing simple games, building towers with blocks so she could knock them down. She'd laugh, actual joyful vocalizations. When the blocks scattered, I'd laugh too. Not the bitter, hollow laugh of my drinking years. Real laughter, the kind that comes from genuine delight. The camera captured those moments, captured me discovering that I could still feel joy, that I could still be the kind of father who played on the floor with his child instead of the distant academic who treated parenting as an obligation to schedule around more important work. March 1988. Willow was 6 months old and developing rapidly. She could stand while holding furniture, could manipulate objects with remarkable dexterity, was showing problem-solving abilities that suggested intelligence beyond simple imitation. One afternoon, I gave her a clear plastic container with a treat inside. The lid was screwed on. She couldn't open it immediately. I filmed her working on the problem for 12 minutes. She tried pulling the lid, tried biting it, tried hitting the container, then stopped, examined it carefully, noticed the threads on the lid, tried twisting. The lid came off. She looked at me with an expression I can only describe as pride, then ate the treat. Later that night, reviewing the footage, I realized what I'd just documented: tool problem solving with delayed gratification and systematic experimentation, cognitive abilities that rivaled young chimpanzees. But more than that, the look she'd given me, the desire to share her success, the social intelligence that made accomplishment meaningful because someone she cared about had witnessed it. She wasn't just solving problems. She was developing a relationship with me where my approval mattered, where sharing experiences was part of the reward. April 1988. A moment that changed everything. I was filming Willow playing. She was 7 months old, could walk while holding my hands, was endlessly curious about everything in the cabin. She toddled over to the bookshelf, pulled a book down, brought it to me. "You want me to read to you?" I asked. She made her yes sound. A specific vocalization I'd learned meant affirmation or desire. I sat down. She climbed into my lap. I opened the book, Where the Wild Things Are, something I'd read to Michael and Sarah when they were small. Started reading aloud. Willow sat completely still, focused on the pages. When I pointed to pictures, she'd look where I pointed. When I made voices for the wild things, she'd vocalize back, mimicking tones. We read for 30 minutes. When I finished, she took the book, turned it over, handed it back. Wanted me to start again. I started crying. Couldn't help it. This was the relationship I'd failed to build with my own children. The simple act of reading together, being present, sharing something that had no purpose beyond connection. And I was experiencing it with a Bigfoot infant, with a being I'd found dying in a ravine, with the child I'd chosen when I'd lost the children I'd failed. The camera was still running, captured everything. My tears. Willow's concern when she saw me crying, her reaching up to touch my face, making comforting sounds she'd learned from me comforting her. The moment I became her father completely. Not her caretaker or her researcher or her protector, her father, and she became my daughter. That night I wrote in my journal, Month 7. Today, Willow brought me a book and asked me to read to her. Not with words, she doesn't have words yet, but with clear intentional communication that showed she understood what books were for, what reading meant, what she wanted from me. She sat in my lap for 30 minutes while I read, focused, engaged, responding to the story, to the pictures, to my voice. This is a being capable of symbolic thought, capable of understanding narrative, capable of wanting connection beyond physical need. But more than that, this is my daughter. In every way that matters, she's my daughter. And I love her the way I should have loved Michael and Sarah. The way I failed to love them because I was too focused on my career, my research, my need to prove I was significant. Willow has given me a second chance, a chance to be the father I should have been. I don't deserve this gift, but I'm not going to waste it. I filmed hundreds of hours over the following months. Willow learning to walk independently, learning to feed herself, showing preferences for certain foods, certain toys, certain routines, but also showing empathy. When I was sad or frustrated, she'd bring me things, her favorite blanket, a toy, a book, trying to comfort me the way I comforted her, showing humor. She'd hide objects and watch me search for them, then make sounds that were unmistakably laughter when I acted confused, showing personality, stubborn about bedtime, gentle with small animals, frightened by loud noises, but curious about new experiences. She wasn't a specimen, wasn't a research subject, was a person developing in all the ways that matter, and I was documenting the most significant discovery of the century while simultaneously living the most meaningful relationship of my life. The tapes captured both science and love, documentation and devotion, evidence that would revolutionize biology and proof that I'd finally learned what actually mattered. By summer 1988, Willow was a year old and her development was astounding. She could walk, run, climb with agility that made toddler-proofing nearly impossible. Her vocalizations had expanded into a complex system. Different sounds for different needs, different emotional states, different attempts at communication. I started teaching her simple signs, modified ASL adapted for her hand structure. More, food, play, sleep, outside. She learned them within days. Started using them deliberately. Would sign more when she wanted seconds at meals. Would sign outside when she wanted to explore the property. Would sign play and then bring me specific toys she wanted to engage with. The footage from this period shows conversations. Not verbal. She couldn't produce human speech sounds and probably never would, but meaningful exchanges. I'd ask questions in simple sign. She'd respond. We'd negotiate activities, discuss needs, share observations about things we noticed together. My narration on the tapes shifted completely. August 12, 1988. Willow and I spent 2 hours exploring the creek today. She's fascinated by water, kept signing more and splashing. When I said we needed to go home, she signed no 3 times, then reluctantly took my hand. We're learning boundaries together, learning how to communicate disappointment and compromise. This is what parenting actually is. Not controlling, but negotiating with another person who has their own desires and needs. September 1988 brought a crisis that tested everything. Willow got sick, high fever, lethargy, refusing food. I had no idea what normal illness looked like for her species. No veterinary reference, no way to get medical help without revealing her existence. I stayed up for 3 days straight, monitored her temperature, kept her hydrated, tried every remedy I knew for human children, and prayed something would work. The camera captured my fear, captured me sitting beside her bed, holding her hand, talking to her even though she was too weak to respond. "Please don't leave me," I whispered. "Please, Willow, I can't lose you. You're all I have. You're everything that matters. Please fight. Please stay." On the 3rd night, her fever broke. She opened her eyes, made a weak sound. I started crying. Again. Couldn't help it. She reached up and touched my face. The same comforting gesture she'd learned months ago. Even sick, even exhausted, she was trying to reassure me. "I love you," I said. First time I'd said it out loud. "I love you so much, Willow. You're my girl, my daughter. I love you." She made a sound I'd never heard before. Soft, content. A sound that meant, "I know, I love you too." The footage shows that moment, shows me holding her hand, shows her falling asleep safely, shows the bond between us that had transcended every biological and social boundary that should have prevented it. As Willow grew stronger, she started bringing me things. At first I thought it was random. Rocks, leaves, sticks she'd found during our walks. But the pattern became clear. She was giving me gifts, things she thought were beautiful or interesting, things she wanted to share. October 1988. She brought me a perfect autumn leaf, red and gold, placed it carefully in my hand, looked at me expectantly. "This is beautiful," I said, signing beautiful the way I'd taught her. "Thank you, Willow." She made her happy sound, then ran off to find more. Over the following months, she'd bring me treasures constantly. Interesting rocks, bird feathers, flowers, each one presented with clear intention. "This is beautiful, and I want you to have it." I started giving gifts too. Would find things during my walks that I thought she'd like. A piece of quartz crystal, a shed antler, a particularly soft piece of moss. She'd accept each gift with the same delight she showed when bringing me things, would examine them carefully, would keep favorites in a corner of her sleeping area I'd learned was her space for important objects. We were building a language of care, of sharing, of saying you matter to me through objects that had no practical value but carried emotional significance. The camera captured it all, dozens of exchanges. Physical proof that gift-giving, one of the behaviors anthropologists consider uniquely human, was something Willow understood instinctively. By early 1989, Willow was 18 months old, and our communication system was sophisticated. She knew over 50 signs, could combine them to create new meanings. Food, plus more, plus outside, meant she wanted to eat berries from the garden. Play, plus water, plus me, meant she wanted to swim in the creek. But more remarkable, she was creating her own signs. Gestures I hadn't taught her but that she used consistently for specific concepts. She had a sign for camera, touching her eye, then pointing, meant she wanted me to film something. She had a sign for story, a gesture like opening a book, meant she wanted me to read to her. She had a sign for safe, touching her chest then touching mine, meant she felt secure, meant everything was okay. I documented all of it. The camera shows our conversations becoming more complex, shows her expressing preferences, asking questions, sharing observations. One afternoon she signed bird plus where plus go. She was asking where birds went at night, a question that showed she'd been observing, wondering, wanting to understand patterns she'd noticed. I tried to explain, used signs for sleep and nest and tree, drew pictures in the dirt, pointed to examples. She watched carefully, then made her understanding sound, then signed bird plus safe plus sleep plus like me. She'd understood, had connected birds sleeping in nests to her sleeping in her bed, had recognized the parallel, had used that understanding to feel less alone. Other creatures sleep safely too. The camera captured me crying. Again. Because I was watching a mind develop, watching a person learn to think abstractly, to make connections, to understand her place in a larger world. March 1989. A letter arrived from Linda, forwarded from my old Berkeley address. The first communication from my ex-wife in nearly 2 years. It was brutal. Michael is graduating high school in June. He doesn't want you there. Sarah has made it clear she's embarrassed to have you as a father. They've both asked me to tell you to stop sending letters and gifts. They don't want contact with the man who abandoned them for imaginary creatures. You made your choice, Elias. You chose your obsession over your family. Live with that choice. But stop pretending you're still their father. You lost that right when you proved you loved a monster more than you loved your own children. I sat on the porch reading that letter over and over. Willow was playing nearby, 20 months old, completely unaware of my crisis. After an hour, she noticed, stopped playing, came over to where I was sitting, looked at my face, recognized something was wrong, even though I hadn't made a sound. She climbed into my lap, signed sad. A question. Yes, I signed back. Sad. She put her arms around me, made her comforting sound, the same sound I'd made to her hundreds of times when she was upset. We sat like that for 20 minutes, my impossible daughter comforting her broken father, understanding that I needed support even if she couldn't understand why. The camera was running, captured everything, captured the moment I realized Linda had been right. I did love Willow, more than I'd loved Michael and Sarah. Not because Willow was better, because I'd finally learned how to love properly, how to be present, how to prioritize a child's needs over my own ego, and I'd learned it too late to save my relationship with my human children, but not too late to build something real with the child I'd found dying in a ravine. That night I wrote, Month 20. Today, Willow recognized my emotional pain without me expressing it verbally. She comforted me, held me, made sounds she's learned mean safety and love. Linda's letter said I love a monster more than my own children. She's half right. I love Willow completely, with the full capacity I should have had for Michael and Sarah but was too broken to access. But Willow isn't a monster. She's the daughter who taught me how to be a father, the being who showed me what love requires: presence, attention, prioritization, sacrifice. I failed my human children. That's a truth I have to carry. But I'm not failing Willow. And maybe, that's redemption enough. Summer 1990. Willow was 3 years old, developing faster than human children in some ways, slower in others. Her physical abilities were remarkable, could climb trees with ease, had strength far beyond human children her age. But her emotional and cognitive development followed a more human-like trajectory. Curious, playful, sometimes stubborn, deeply attached to routine and familiar people, which meant she was deeply attached to me, and only me. She'd never seen another person, didn't know humans beyond her father existed. July brought loggers to the property boundary. A timber company had purchased adjacent land and was preparing to harvest. They'd be working within a mile of my cabin for the next 3 months. I kept Willow inside during the day, explained with signs that we had to be quiet, had to stay hidden, that other people couldn't see her. She didn't understand why. Signed people, plus why, plus no see. I tried to explain, not safe. People would take you away from me. Why? Because they don't understand you're a person. They'd think you're an animal. They'd put you in a cage. Her eyes widened. She knew what cages were. We'd discussed them when talking about the animals we sometimes saw trapped or injured. She signed no cage emphatically. Then, stay plus here plus you. Yes, we stay here, together. But we have to be very quiet when other people are nearby. The logging operation lasted through September. 3 months of hypervigilance. 3 months of keeping Willow indoors during peak hours. 3 months of teaching her to be silent when she heard trucks or chainsaws. She hated it. Would stand at the window watching the forest, signing outside over and over. Not yet, I'd say. Soon, when they're gone, we can go outside again. One afternoon in late August, I was reviewing footage in my office, a small addition I'd built onto the cabin separate from the living space. I'd left Willow in the main room with her toys, door between us closed so the TV noise wouldn't disturb her nap time. I got absorbed in the footage, lost track of time, didn't hear her wake up, didn't hear the door open, didn't realize she'd gone outside until I heard voices. Men's voices, loggers, on my property, and Willow was outside. I ran, burst through the cabin door to see 3 men standing 50 feet away, staring at Willow. She was frozen near the garden, looking at them with clear fear. "What the fuck is that?" one man said. Is that a gorilla? Did this guy have a fucking gorilla?" I ran toward Willow. She saw me and ran too, met me halfway. I scooped her up. "Get off my property," I said, voice shaking. "This is private land. You're trespassing." "What is that thing?" the first man demanded. "None of your business. Get off my property now or I'm calling the sheriff." They backed away slowly, still staring, got in their truck, left. But the damage was done. That night, I explained what had happened as best I could with signs and simple words. "Those men saw you. They might tell other people. Other people might come looking." Willow signed, "Afraid." "Me too," I signed. "But we're going to be careful. We're going to stay hidden better." For the next 2 weeks, I lived in terror, waiting for authorities to show up, for wildlife control, for government agencies, for someone to come and take Willow away. But nobody came. The loggers apparently hadn't reported it. Maybe they thought they'd seen a bear, or were embarrassed they couldn't identify the creature. Maybe they didn't want to admit they'd been trespassing. Maybe they just didn't care enough to file a report. But I couldn't trust that silence would last. Couldn't risk Willow being seen again. So I made the hardest decision. We had to move deeper into the property, away from the boundaries where loggers or hikers might appear, away from the cabin I'd built with my own hands. I spent 3 weeks building a new shelter, deeper in the forest, more secluded, harder to access, rougher conditions but safer. Willow hated the move, signed home over and over, meaning the cabin. Didn't understand why we had to leave. "This is home now," I kept signing, "safer here, together here." But she was anxious, disturbed, acting out in ways she hadn't since she was much younger. The stability and routine I'd built for her had been disrupted, and I'd failed to protect her from that disruption, failed to keep her safe from discovery, failed to maintain the sanctuary I'd promised her. October 1990. We'd been in the new shelter for a month. Willow was adjusting slowly, still signed home plus old regularly, but was accepting the new routine. One afternoon, I heard vehicles, multiple trucks, on my property. I grabbed Willow, told her to be absolutely silent. We hid in the shelter while I watched through gaps in the walls. 5 men, walking through my property with equipment, surveying, taking measurements, marking trees, the timber company. They'd been sold my boundary property and were now surveying to determine if they wanted to make me an offer too. If they bought my land, we'd have nowhere to go. Nowhere within hundreds of miles that was remote enough, isolated enough, safe enough. They'd take Willow from me, or I'd have to give her up, release her into the wild, and hope she could survive alone, even though she'd been raised by a human and knew nothing about living in the forest without me. I couldn't let that happen. That night I made a decision I'd been avoiding for 3 years. I contacted my ex-wife, the first direct communication since the divorce. "Linda, I need help. I need money to purchase additional land adjacent to my property. It's being threatened by development. If you ever cared about my work, if you ever believed in anything I was trying to do, please help me protect this place." She responded 2 days later. "No. Whatever you're doing in those woods, it's not my problem anymore. You made your choices. Live with them." I had no money, no way to purchase the land, no way to prevent the timber company from eventually pushing us out. I sat with Willow that evening, trying to figure out what to do. She could sense my distress, kept signing "okay" over and over. "I don't know," I signed honestly. "I don't know how to keep you safe." She thought for a moment, then signed something profound. "You, plus, try, plus, enough. You try. That's enough." She was telling me that my effort mattered, that trying to protect her was what counted, even if I couldn't guarantee success. That love wasn't about perfect outcomes. It was about consistent showing up. A 4-year-old Bigfoot was teaching me about forgiveness, about accepting limitation, about the difference between failing and being a failure. I'd failed my human children by not trying hard enough, by prioritizing my career over their needs, by being absent even when physically present. But I was trying with Willow, trying every day, showing up consistently, prioritizing her needs over everything else. And she was telling me that's what love is. Not perfection, not protecting from every threat, just consistently choosing to be present and to try. I held her for a long time. "I will keep trying," I signed. "Always, no matter what." She signed, "No, plus safe, plus you." "I know. I'm safe with you." That night I wrote, "Year 4. Today, Willow forgave me for the fear I've caused her, the disruption, the uncertainty. She forgave me by telling me my effort was enough. That trying mattered more than succeeding perfectly. This is what I never understood with Michael and Sarah. I thought being a good father meant never failing, meant protecting them from everything, meant being perfect. But parenting isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, about trying, about being present even when you can't fix everything. Willow has taught me that, and I wish, God, I wish, I'd learned it early enough to save my relationship with my human children. But I didn't. And now all I can do is be the father Willow needs and accept that my trying is enough, even when outcomes are uncertain. I'm sharing this now because my son reached out last month. Michael, 52 years old, said he's been in therapy, said he understands now that I was broken and doing my best, said he'd like to try having a relationship. I showed him this footage, some of it, not all. He cried, said, "You learned how to be a father, just not with us." He's right. Subscribe if you believe people can change, that we can learn love even after we've failed at it catastrophically. That redemption is possible even when it doesn't undo past harm. Now, let me show you what happened next. Spring 1991. Willow was 4.5 years old. One afternoon we were walking through the forest when she stopped suddenly. Signed, "Wait." I stopped. "What is it?" She pointed to the ground. There was a snake, probably a gopher snake, non-venomous, but I hadn't identified it yet, partially hidden in leaves. My instinct was to pull Willow away, get her to safety, protect her from potential danger, but she signed, "Watch," wanted me to observe rather than react. We watched the snake for 10 minutes. It was hunting, moving slowly through leaf litter, eventually caught a mouse. After it moved away, Willow signed, "See, plus, wait, plus, no." She'd wanted to observe before deciding the snake was a threat, had wanted to understand its behavior before acting. Later that day, I reflected on how much she'd taught me about observation, about not assuming every unknown is dangerous, about taking time to understand before reacting. The camera captured that moment. Willow teaching her father to be patient, to watch, to see what's actually happening rather than what fear tells you might happen. Summer 1991. Willow had developed a sophisticated nonverbal communication system. Signs, gestures, expressions, sounds. She could convey complex ideas without ever speaking a word I'd recognize as language. One evening, I was frustrated with some consulting work, writing a report I didn't care about for timber companies I resented. Willow noticed, didn't ask what was wrong with signs. Instead, she came over and sat beside me, leaned against my shoulder. Made a soft humming sound I'd learned meant contentment and safety. She stayed like that for 20 minutes, didn't try to fix anything, didn't ask questions, just provided presence. When she finally got up to play, I realized my frustration had dissolved, not because anything had changed about the work, because someone had witnessed my distress and chose to sit with it rather than fix it. That night I narrated on camera, Year 4, Month 8, Willow taught me something profound today. She showed me that comfort doesn't require words, that the best response to someone's pain is often just presence, just sitting beside them, just being there without trying to solve anything. I spent my academic career trying to articulate everything, to explain, to analyze, to reduce complex experiences to language and data. But some things don't need words. Some things are better honored through silence and proximity. Willow knows that instinctively. I'm still learning it. Fall 1991. Willow spent hours every day playing, building structures from sticks and rocks, creating games with rules I couldn't always decipher, engaging in elaborate scenarios that seemed to have narrative structure, even though I couldn't understand the story. I caught myself sometimes thinking, she should be learning something useful, should be developing practical skills, should be doing something more productive than play. Then I'd watch the footage, really watch it. Willow's play was how she understood the world. She'd stack rocks to understand balance and physics. She'd create scenarios with her toys to work through emotions and social concepts. She'd invent games with complex rules to develop executive function and problem solving. Play wasn't frivolous, it was the work of childhood, the way young minds make sense of existence. One afternoon, she built an elaborate structure from found materials, sticks, rocks, leaves, arranged in patterns that showed clear intention, spent 3 hours on it, then deliberately knocked it down. I thought she'd made a mistake. Signed, sad, meaning, are you sad you destroyed it? She signed, no, plus build, plus again, plus different. She'd destroyed it intentionally, was going to rebuild with different understanding. The process mattered more than the product. I narrated that evening. Year 5. Willow taught me today that creation and destruction are both part of learning, that building something isn't about preserving it forever, it's about understanding through the process, that starting over isn't failure, it's iteration. I spent my academic life trying to build permanent structures, theories, publications, legacy, all designed to last forever, to prove I mattered. Willow builds and destroys and rebuilds without attachment to permanence. She understands something I'm only now learning. The meaning is in the doing, not in what persists after. Winter 1992. Willow was 5 years old. We'd developed a good routine, but sometimes she'd want things I couldn't provide. Certain foods, access to areas that weren't safe, activities that required resources I didn't have. She'd sign want plus whatever it was. Would get frustrated when I said no. But over time I noticed she never signed need for those things. She'd developed clear distinction. Need for food, water, safety, affection. Want for everything else. And she'd accept no more easily when she understood the difference. Would negotiate wants. Would never question legitimate needs being met. One afternoon she signed want plus fruit plus specific kind we didn't have. Don't have that fruit, I signed. Have different fruit. Need food or want specific food. She thought about it. Signed want specific. Need food. Will accept different. She'd just demonstrated understanding of a concept humans struggle with, distinguishing between desires and requirements, between preferences and necessities. I reflected on camera. Year 5, month 3. Willow understands needs versus wants better than most adults. She can distinguish between what's essential and what's preferred, can accept substitutes for wants while insisting on needs being met. Human consumer culture deliberately blurs this distinction, tells us wants are needs, that we require things we merely desire. That deprivation of preferences is actual suffering. Willow hasn't been exposed to that manipulation. She knows what her body and mind actually require. Everything else is negotiable. Maybe that's wisdom we've lost. Maybe knowing what we truly need and accepting that most of what we want isn't necessary is the beginning of actual contentment. Spring 1993. Willow was 6 years old. One afternoon we were looking through old photographs I'd kept. Pictures of Michael and Sarah when they were young. Willow looked at them carefully, then at me, then at herself, in a mirror I'd hung in the cabin. She signed, different. Yes, I signed. You look different from me, different from other humans. She thought for a long moment, then signed something profound. Look different. Plus, family same. She understood. She didn't look like me, didn't look like the children in the photographs. But family wasn't about appearance. Family was about connection, about caring, about choosing to belong to each other. I'd spent years wondering if Willow would eventually realize she didn't belong with me, would want to find others of her kind, would recognize that I wasn't her real family. But she just told me, family is real because we make it real, not because biology or appearance dictate it. That night I narrated, Year 6, month 2. Today, Willow taught me that belonging isn't about similarity. That family isn't defined by matching features or shared genetics, that the bonds we choose can be stronger than the bonds we're born with. I failed to understand that with my human children. Thought being biologically related meant we automatically belonged to each other. Didn't realize belonging requires effort, attention, choosing each other daily. Willow and I choose each other every day. That makes us family in ways that matter more than any DNA test. And maybe that's the lesson humans most need to learn. We belong where we're loved, where we're seen, where we're chosen. Everything else is just circumstance. Fall 1993. Willow was nearly 7 years old. One evening she found my old academic papers, publications from before the exile. Before everything fell apart, she couldn't read them but was fascinated by the formatting, the pictures, the official appearance. She signed important. Used to think so, I signed. Thought these papers made me important, proved I mattered, would be my legacy. Legacy? I tried to explain. What people remember after you're gone. What proves your life mattered. She thought about that, then made a gesture toward all the footage I'd recorded. Signed this plus legacy? Maybe, I signed, but I'll probably never show anyone, so maybe not legacy. Just record. Just documentation of us. She shook her head. Signed something profound. Not paper. Plus not film. Plus this. Touching her chest. Plus legacy. She was saying, legacy isn't what you document or publish. Legacy is what you put into another being. What you teach. What you share. What you give that continues living in those you've touched. My papers would gather dust. My footage might never be seen. But everything I'd taught Willow, every moment of care, every lesson, every exchange, that would live in her, would shape how she moved through the world, would be passed forward if she ever had offspring of her own. That was legacy, not publications or documentation, just love given freely, just time invested in another being's growth, just showing up consistently and helping someone become who they're capable of being. I broke down crying. Again. Willow came and held me. Again. You've saved me, I signed when I could. You've taught me everything that actually matters, everything I wish I'd known earlier. She signed no plus together. Plus enough. We know. We're together. That's enough. She was right. It was enough. More than enough. The only thing that had ever mattered. Summer 1995. I was 52 years old, had been raising Willow for nearly 8 years. My body showed the years: back problems from building shelters, joint pain from rough living, exhaustion from the constant vigilance required to keep us hidden. Willow was 8.5. Entering what I estimated was adolescence for her species. She was taller than me now, had to be close to 7 feet, stronger than me by orders of magnitude. Could have left any time if she'd wanted to, but she stayed, chose to stay, chose me every day even though she was physically capable of surviving independently. We developed new communication patterns to account for her size. She'd crouch or sit so we could sign face to face. Would be careful moving around me, aware that her strength could hurt me accidentally. One afternoon I was gathering firewood when I stumbled. Old injury acting up. Fell hard. Willow was beside me instantly. Signed, hurt? I'm okay, I signed. Just old. Body doesn't work as well anymore. She looked concerned. Made a sound I'd learned meant worry. Signed old, plus. How much? Probably 20 or 30 more years if I'm lucky. Then I'll die. That's how human aging works. She signed die plus when. I don't know exactly, but eventually. She touched my face gently. Signed sad plus no you. She was already grieving my future death, already understanding that our time together was limited by my human lifespan. I'm sad too, I signed, but I'm grateful for every day we have, every moment together. This has been the best part of my life, Willow. Raising you, loving you, being your father. She signed best part, plus me too, plus you father, plus always, always. Even after I was gone, I'd always be her father. She'd always carry what we'd built together. Fall 1995. The awareness of mortality hung over everything now. Not morbidly, just realistically. I was aging. Willow was growing. Eventually, she'd need to survive without me. I started teaching her things I'd avoided before. How to avoid humans, how to stay hidden, how to read signs of danger, how to move through the forest without leaving obvious tracks. She learned quickly, but signed why now plus always together before. Because I won't always be here, I signed. Because you need to know how to be safe without me. No leave, she signed emphatically. Stay together. I'll stay as long as I can, but eventually my body will stop working. That's not a choice. That's just how human bodies are. She was quiet for a long time, then signed, teach everything. Plus, now. Plus, remember later. She understood. Understood we were in a different phase. Not just living day to day anymore. Preparing for an eventual goodbye neither of us wanted, but both of us knew was inevitable. As the awareness of limited time grew, our physical closeness deepened. Willow would sit close to me every evening, would rest her head on my shoulder while I read or worked, would take my hand while we walked even though she didn't need guidance anymore. She was storing up physical memories, moments of contact, the weight of proximity. All the small touches that say, I'm here, you're here, we're together. One night in December I was sick, winter cold that had settled into my chest, coughing, feverish, weak. Willow stayed beside me for 3 days, brought me water, made sure I stayed warm, signed okay every few hours. On the 3rd night, when the fever was worst, she laid down beside me, wrapped her arms around me, made soft sounds, the same comforting sounds I'd made to her when she was an infant. She was taking care of me, reversing our roles, being the parent to her failing father. Thank you, I whispered. Thank you for staying. Thank you for caring about me. She signed, love, plus you, Paulus, father, plus always. I recovered. But the experience showed us both. I was vulnerable now. The protector needed protecting. The parent needed parenting. And Willow was capable of providing it, was mature enough, devoted enough, loving enough to care for me the way I'd cared for her. We were family, completely. Each of us capable of being weak with the other, each of us willing to be strong when needed. Spring 1996. Willow was 9 years old, nearly full grown, magnificent, powerful, intelligent, everything I'd hoped she'd become. One evening, we were sitting outside the shelter watching sunset, something we did regularly, just existing together. She signed, grateful, plus you, plus save me, teach me, plus love me. I'm grateful too, I signed. You saved me more than I saved you. You taught me how to be a father, taught me what love actually requires, gave me purpose when I had none. She touched my face, held my gaze, made a sound that conveyed everything we'd built together, everything we meant to each other. Then she signed something that broke me. If you die, plus, I remember everything, plus, teach others maybe, share what you gave me. She was promising to carry forward what I'd taught her, to pass it on if she ever had children of her own, to make sure the love I'd given her would continue beyond my lifetime. That's all I could ever ask, I signed. That you remember, that you carry it forward, that our family continues even when I'm gone. We sat until full dark, holding hands, aware that our time together was moving toward an end neither of us could prevent, but both of us were determined to make meaningful. June 17th, 1996. I remember the date because it was the day everything ended, the day I had to make the impossible choice. A hiker had gotten lost, ended up near our property, saw Willow through the trees, called authorities, said he'd seen a Bigfoot, described the location accurately enough that I knew they'd come, knew they'd search, knew our hiding was over. I had maybe 2 days, maybe 3 if I was lucky, before wildlife officials arrived, before government agencies descended, before Willow became government property or a research specimen or worse. I explained as well as I could. People are coming. People who will take you away from me. We can't stay here anymore. Where go, she signed. That was the question that had been eating me alive. Where could we go? I was 53 years old. She was 9. I couldn't disappear into wilderness permanently, couldn't live on the run indefinitely. And more importantly, Willow deserved more than hiding, deserved more than spending her entire life afraid of discovery, deserved to exist without the constant fear that had defined our last few years. You need to go deep into the forest, I signed. Find others of your kind if they exist. Live free. Live without hiding. No, she signed emphatically. Stay together. Always together. We can't anymore, I signed, tears starting. They'll take you if we stay together. Put you in a cage, study you, treat you like an animal instead of a person. I can't protect you from that if they find us together. Don't care, she signed. Want you. Want family. I want that too. God, I want that too. But I love you more than I want what I want. And loving you means protecting you, even when that means letting you go. We had one more night. I spent it reviewing all the footage, all 1,400 hours, watching Willow grow from a dying infant into a magnificent young adult, watching myself transform from a broken exile into something that resembled a decent father. Willow sat beside me the whole time, watched herself on screen, signed occasional comments, small then, plus, remember that, plus, happy day. When we finished, as dawn was approaching, she turned to me, signed, keep this, plus, remember always, plus, share, maybe. She was giving me permission to keep the documentation, permission to remember, permission to maybe someday share what we'd built together if I thought the world was ready to see it. Then she did something remarkable. She pressed her forehead against mine, held it there. A gesture she'd seen me do with her when she was small. A benediction, a blessing, a recognition of everything we'd shared. I love you, I signed when she pulled back. You're my daughter, my family. The best thing I ever did was choose to save you that day. The best thing I ever was is your father. She signed, best thing I ever did. Plus was trust you, plus was love you back, plus was let you teach me. Then she touched my chest, her hand over my heart, held it there. I covered her hand with mine, felt the connection between us, the bond that had sustained both of us through 8 years of isolation, fear, joy, and transformation. As the sun rose, Willow stood. I stood with her. We walked to the edge of the property, to where the deep forest began, where she could disappear into wilderness I couldn't follow. She turned back one more time, signed, come back, plus, maybe, plus, someday, plus, safe to see you. I hope so, I signed. I'll be here, waiting, always waiting for you. She made the sound that meant love, that meant family, that meant everything we couldn't put into signs or words. Then she raised one hand, palm open. The gesture she'd learned meant goodbye, but also peace, also hope, also, until we meet again. I raised my hand the same way, held it there until she turned and walked into the forest. She moved beautifully, powerfully, capable, free. I watched until I couldn't see her anymore, until the forest had reclaimed its daughter. Until the being I'd raised had returned to the world she came from. Willow never came back. The authorities arrived 2 days later, searched the property, found evidence of occupation, the shelters, the supplies, signs that someone had been living deeper in the forest than my main cabin, but they didn't find Willow. She'd left no trace, had used everything I'd taught her about staying hidden. They questioned me, asked what I'd been doing in the forest, why I'd built additional structures, whether I'd seen the Bigfoot the hiker reported. I'm a wildlife biologist, I said. I study animal behavior. Sometimes that requires extended observation in remote locations. As for Bigfoot, I spent my career pursuing that question. Never found definitive proof, don't expect I ever will. They left eventually, marked it down as a false sighting. Another person who saw something ambiguous and let imagination fill in details. And I was alone, truly alone, in ways I hadn't been since 1987. The cabin felt empty. The forest felt empty. My life felt empty. I had 1,400 hours of footage, proof of everything I'd witnessed, evidence that would vindicate my career, restore my reputation, revolutionize science. And I couldn't share any of it, because sharing it meant betraying Willow, meant turning her into proof instead of honoring her as a person, meant valuing my legacy over her freedom. So I kept it hidden, kept it secret, chose her protection over my vindication. That was the final lesson she taught me. Love means choosing the other person's well-being over your own validation, means letting go even when holding on is what you desperately want, means protecting their freedom even when proving their existence would give your life meaning. I never saw Willow again, never got proof she survived, never knew if she found others of her kind or lived alone or died young, or is still out there somewhere. Nearly 30 years older now, maybe with offspring of her own. But I hope, every day, I hope. Hope she's alive, hope she's free, hope she remembers. Hope the love I gave her continues living in her, shaping her, making her capable of passing it forward. That's enough. That has to be enough. I'm 74 years old now, been living alone for 28 years since Willow left. Never remarried, never had other children, never returned to academia. I kept the tapes, all 1,400 hours, stored in climate-controlled conditions, preserved perfectly, evidence of the most significant discovery of my lifetime, proof that I wasn't crazy, that everything I'd sacrificed my career for was real. But I never showed them to anyone until last month. Michael came to visit, my son. We'd been rebuilding our relationship slowly over the past decade. He'd forgiven me, or was learning to, had accepted that I'd been broken when he was young, that I'd failed as his father, not because I didn't love him, but because I didn't know how. Dad, he said, what were you really doing all those years? What was in the forest that mattered more than us? So I showed him some of the footage. Not all. Some things are too sacred even for family. But enough. He watched Willow grow from infant to child to adolescent, watched me transform from broken exile to devoted father, watched a relationship develop that transcended every boundary biology should have prevented. When it finished, Michael was crying. You learned how to be a father, he said. You just didn't learn it with us. You learned it with her. I'm sorry, I said. I'm so sorry I couldn't be that father for you and Sarah, that I failed you, that you had to grow up with a father who was too broken to show up properly. But you learned, Michael said. You became capable of it. That matters. And maybe that's why you're sharing this now, because you finally learned what it means and you want people to understand what you finally understood. He was right. That's exactly why I'm sharing this now, why I'm finally willing to release some of the footage, why I'm telling this story even though it reveals failure and loss alongside the transformation. Here's what Willow taught me about being human, about being a parent, about what actually matters. First, presence is the foundation of love. Not words, not promises, not intentions, actual physical and emotional presence. Showing up, being there, prioritizing the other person's needs consistently over time. I failed at that with Michael and Sarah, succeeded with Willow only because I'd finally learned the cost of absence. The lesson came too late for my human children, but not too late to matter. Second, communication transcends language. Willow and I built a relationship deeper than most human families achieve, and we never shared verbal language. We built it through attention, observation, touch, time. We built it by being present to each other's needs and joys and fears, by witnessing each other, by showing up consistently. Words are tools for connection, but they're not connection itself. Third, family is chosen, not given. Biology didn't make Willow my daughter. Love did, daily care did, consistent choosing did. She became my family because we chose each other, every day. That makes the bond stronger than mere genetics. That makes it real in ways that passive biological connection never guarantees. Fourth, play is how we learn everything important. Willow taught me that childhood play isn't frivolous. It's the work of development. It's how young beings make sense of the world, process emotions, develop skills, understand relationships. I dismissed play with my human children, thought homework and achievement were what mattered. Willow showed me I'd been catastrophically wrong. Fifth, letting go is the highest expression of love. I wanted to keep Willow with me, wanted to hold on to the only family I'd successfully built. But loving her meant prioritizing her freedom over my needs, meant sending her away, even though it destroyed me, meant choosing her well-being over my desires. That's what love actually requires, and what I'd failed to understand with Michael and Sarah until it was too late. And finally, legacy isn't what you leave, it's what you give. My academic publications are forgotten. My career is a footnote. But everything I gave Willow, every moment of care, every lesson, every expression of love that lives in her, that shapes how she moves through the world, that continues beyond my lifetime if she passes it forward, that's legacy. Not what persists in libraries or databases, what persists in beings we've touched. Willow wasn't supernatural, wasn't magical, wasn't mystical. She was a person, an individual from a species we don't fully understand, a being with cognitive abilities, emotional depth, capacity for love and learning and growth that matched or exceeded human potential. She deserves recognition as a person, not as a cryptid or a specimen or proof of anything, as a being worthy of dignity, freedom, protection. And there are probably others, probably more of her species living in wilderness we haven't destroyed yet. Probably families, communities, cultures we know nothing about because we're too arrogant to imagine intelligence exists in forms that don't match our own. Willow taught me humility, taught me to question every assumption about what intelligence means, about what makes a being worthy of respect, about what defines personhood beyond human characteristics. She was better than most humans I've known, kinder, more capable of forgiveness, more willing to love across difference, more able to live with presence instead of distraction. The world would be better if we learned from beings like her instead of trying to prove they exist so we can study them like objects. I have one physical artifact from those 8 years, one thing Willow made and gave me before she left, a necklace, woven from plant fibers with remarkable skill. Took her 3 months to complete, gave it to me on my birthday in 1995. She couldn't speak the words, but the gesture said everything. I made this for you, because you matter, because our connection is precious enough to commemorate in something lasting. I've worn it for 28 years, never taken it off, physical reminder that I was loved by a being who chose to love me despite every reason not to, despite me being the wrong species, despite me being broken, despite me having failed at love before. She loved me anyway, chose me anyway, made our family real through consistency and devotion and trust. That necklace is worth more than every publication I ever wrote, more than tenure, more than reputation or vindication or legacy. It's proof that I mattered to someone, that I showed up well enough to earn love from a being who had no obligation to give it. That's the only validation I need, the only evidence that my life meant something, the only legacy I care about preserving. If you take anything from this story, take this. The beings you love deserve protection more than you deserve validation. I have 1,400 hours of footage that would make me famous. That would restore my reputation. That would prove I was right all along. But Willow deserves privacy more than I deserve vindication, deserves freedom more than I deserve fame, deserves protection more than science deserves data. So most of those tapes will never be seen, will never be shared, will remain hidden because that's what loving her requires. Choose the beings you love over the legacy you want. If you have children, human or otherwise, choose their well-being over your career advancement. Choose presence over productivity. Choose showing up over achieving. I failed at that with Michael and Sarah. Succeeded with Willow only because losing my first family taught me what matters. Don't make my mistake. Don't wait until you've lost what matters to learn how to protect it. Recognize personhood beyond familiar forms. Willow was a person, not human, but a person, deserving of dignity, respect, freedom, love. How many other beings do we fail to recognize as persons because they don't match our narrow definition? How many creatures suffer because we can't imagine intelligence exists in forms different from our own? Open your mind. Expand your definition. Recognize that worth isn't determined by species or appearance or ability to communicate in ways we understand. Love requires letting go. The hardest thing I've ever done was sending Willow away, letting her disappear into the forest, accepting I might never see her again. But loving her meant prioritizing her freedom over my needs, meant giving up what I wanted most because it was best for her. That's what love actually requires, not holding on, letting go, choosing their well-being even when it destroys you. I'm releasing some of this footage now, carefully edited to protect Willow's privacy, to avoid revealing identifying location details, to prevent anyone from using it to hunt for her or her species. I'm 74 years old, don't have much time left. And before I go, I want people to understand what I learned, what Willow taught me, what matters more than scientific discovery or career validation or personal legacy. Subscribe if you believe love transcends species, if you believe family is built through choice rather than biology, if you believe protection matters more than proof. Comment where you're watching from. Tell me if you've ever had to choose between proving you were right and protecting someone you love. Tell me if you understand why some truths are too sacred to validate publicly. And if you're a parent, To human children, or to any being that depends on you, show up. Be present. Choose them over your career, your legacy, your need to achieve. Learn what I learned. The beings who need you matter more than the reputation you want. The moments you share matter more than the evidence you preserve. The love you give matters more than the validation you receive. Willow saved my life by teaching me how to live properly, by showing me what love actually requires, by giving me the chance to be the father I should have been all along. And now I'm trying to pass that forward. Trying to help others avoid my mistakes. Trying to make sure the lessons I learned at such catastrophic cost might help someone else show up better, sooner, before they've lost what matters most. That's legacy. Not the tapes, not the evidence, not the scientific discovery. Just this: love given, lessons shared. Others helped to become better than I was. Willow lives in that, in the transformation she sparked, in the wisdom she shared, in the love she gave freely to a broken man who didn't deserve it but received it anyway. Thank you, Willow. Wherever you are, whatever you've become, thank you for saving me. Thank you for teaching me. Thank you for loving me despite everything I got wrong before I met you. You were the best thing that ever happened to me. And protecting you even now, even through silence, is the best thing I'll ever do.